Should I save my commander sculptures or should I spend them? The biggest question always asked in Rise of Kingdoms. Today I'm going to answer that question in the simplest way I can. I'm going to give you the advantages and disadvantages and when I really think you should be spending your commander sculptures. If you are considering investing in any commanders within the near future, trust me, this is a video you must check out. Now let's get right into the major advantages of saving your commander sculptures. Starting off, you can play to the meta. When I say that, I mean you get to pick the best commanders at the time, basically when they release. So I'm going to give you an example story. Let's go back to 2022, before the release of Boudica Prime. There were two players, and at the time Nebuchadnezzar YSG was the best Archer March. And one player decided, alright, we've got an infantry cavalry and we're soon to see archer commanders, but I'm just going to invest in Nebuchadnezzar anyways. I used his 690 gold heads on Nebu, and then he had a very good march for about 3 months. The player who was patient and waited those 3 months for Boudica Prime to release ended up winning in the end, because they played the meta. That means they got the access to those brand new commanders, and basically they maxed them first day. It also is really good in this situation that you've saved your sculptures, because maxing commanders first day, especially then when they're really new, basically sets you up so hard for the next 3 months. Like, I maxed Boudica, first KVK I used her in, she was destroying everything. I basically maxed her when she released. I took her into my first KVK, and she was just annihilating. Like, I got 15 million kills in that one KVK, and it was a Boudica YSG 1 March, that's it. Crazy. I was beating Nevskis, I was beating CPOs. It was ridiculous when she first released. So really, that was the best example I can give of playing to the meta. Now, as the title suggested, my biggest regret would have to be in investing in the wrong commanders at the wrong time. I went for Gilgamesh very recently, and then we heard about ZHUGE. That was a waste of sculptures and gems. I mean, I'm still probably going to invest in him eventually, but it was a waste. I also invested in Richard at some point, just before Boudica released, so I could AoE barb farm. Boudica came out, I ended up maxing her, and then Richard became completely obsolete. That was a very rash and fast investment of mine, not a good idea. And then in the really early game, I put gold sculptures in Charles Martel, and I put gold sculptures in Cao Cao, before I really knew what I was doing, and I was just investing in what YouTubers said was good. So definitely not the best idea in this situation either, and I do hope you guys can take away from my mistakes. Now, this next advantage isn't as big, but I've seen it happen before. And it's investing in a commander a bit early, okay? So if you get your sculptures and this new commander is released and it's big and shiny, everyone thinks it's going to be really good, and there hasn't been many testing results, I wouldn't be investing in them. The best example I can give of this is the amount of players who invested in Suleiman when he released, a commander that a lot of people thought was going to be an amazing leadership rally. As you can see, no one's ever rallied with Suleiman, so he's not a very good leadership rally. I know a lot of players who maxed Suleiman on the day of release, and they definitely regret it because he doesn't have any use in the whole game. I even spoke to one personally, he sent me a bunch of reports and stuff, and his Suleiman was getting wrecked with full talented leadership gear, or what we called leadership gear back then, which was just a mix of different gears. So really, these commanders, investing in them when they release is sometimes not the best idea, and you kind of do want to wait for those test results. And in that situation, like Suleiman, if the commander's bad, you saved your sculptures and you're safe, and you're definitely one of the lucky people. Now, there are definitely some disadvantages to holding on to your sculptures. So the biggest one is you won't be very strong in the short term. So let's say right now, I'm waiting for ZHUGE as an example again. Could max my Henry. I could max my Henry basically today, and it wouldn't be the worst investment. And I would be really strong until ZHUGE releases. But once ZHUGE comes out, I'll have 0 gold heads, maybe 20 or 30, compared to the 191 which I have right now. So in the end, I'll be better off for the next 3 months, but in the foreseeable future, it's a bad idea. This is really a short-term way of looking at things, and it's probably not the best idea for your account, because when you invest in the commander, you want them to be the meta for at least a year to get the most value out of them. Doesn't mean they have to be completely unusable after a year, it just means within the year they are that best commander for their specific troop type. Another disadvantage is that you are very weak really in the early game if you're saving your commander sculptures. Because in the early game, there's a lot of lack of variety in commanders, and that means a lot of commanders absolutely suck, because they're all old. I can tell you right now, El Cid, Cleopatra, Mulan for the most part, Sundok for pretty much every part, Ishida, Wuzer Tian, Edward of Woodstock, Genghis Khan, Ragnar, all of these commanders are probably not the best investments. They may be really good early game, I've seen people wrecking in early game with Ragnar, but you get to KVK 3, KVK Season of Conquest, and these commanders are useless. Season of Conquest especially, a lot of these commanders fall off. The one thing Lilith has been doing to their credit to help reduce this is the museum. So there are a few exceptions in those commanders which you can choose, and they are really the ones that have the powerful museum buffs, and they're very generic. So for example, Mehmed's really good and Caesar is really good. Those are really the only two exceptions to the rule of which commanders you should invest in to still be powerful for the early game and the late game. But really, if you are not investing in some of the really strong early game commanders, you will be weaker in the short term. So let's say, for example, someone maxes a Richard. He's going to be really good till KVK 3. Get the Season of Conquest, Richard is garbage. So in the short term, that player is going to be really good, maybe for 3 to 6 months. Then they get Season of Conquest, everyone's maxing Boudikas, Nevskis, CPOs. Richard's basically become useless. So that's what I mean when playing to the short term in the early game especially, since that's when a lot of players decide, okay, I will choose these commanders now, even though I know they won't be very good, like Edward of Woodstock or Genghis Khan, because they're very good at the time. And then they know that when they get Season of Conquest, they're definitely going to fall off. Unless they end up migrating back to KVK2, which is not as easy as it used to be. Now, before we get into spending commander sculptures and when to spend them, I just want to say, please subscribe to the channel. These videos take a while to make, and I have a lot of plans for the future. Now, when do you spend these commander sculptures? A question asked a lot. So there are a few best times to spend commander sculptures, and a few times you definitely don't want to be. First thing, when you spend commander sculptures and invest in a commander, you usually want them to be the newest commander of their troop type. So for example, let's say right now I want an infantry march. I'm probably not going to go in here and max Constantine and Leo because they are two very old commanders for the most part. You want the commander you invest in to be like the newest, shiniest commander. So if I was to get an infantry march now, I would probably get a CPO and maybe a Tariq or a Sargon. I probably wouldn't even really consider Guan too much because he is quite old for the most part. So really trying to play the newest commanders is a good idea. Another time I wouldn't really invest in a commander is right now, let's say for example, archers. We know there is going to be a new commander very, very soon. So I know I'm not going to invest in that commander yet. So I would just wait for the new commander to release, see how they go, and then I would decide if I'm going to invest in an archer commander or just pick the new commander for archers and invest in them instead. One thing I like to ensure I'm doing, especially as a garrison or rally leader, is to ensure that I've checked the last commanders that were released. For example, let's say I look into being an infantry garrison player. I take a look at the meta garrisons right now, and it seems Flavius was released 2 commander cycles ago. The last commander that came out was a rally, being Tariq ibn Ziyad. And then you kind of know from there that the next commanders to release are probably going to be a garrison, because Lilith does try to follow a garrison rally meta, so 1 garrison commander, 1 rally commander. This is sometimes an exception depending on the troop type. So for example, Charles Martel was released like with Constantine right after. So it went Charles Martel, Richard, and Constantine basically back to back. That was 3 garrisons. But after that, we got Guan, then we got Zeno, and Guan was a rally, Zeno was a garrison. Then we got Pakal, who is a rally. Then we got Flavius, who's a garrison. And then we got Tariq, who is a rally. So you can see there it seems to go in that rally, garrison, or garrison, rally. So really trying to look into the last commander that was released, and really definitely not getting a garrison or rally that's like 2 generations ago. For example, if I was rallying right now as an infantry player, I definitely, even though it may be the best rally right now, wouldn't be getting Pakal, because Pakal came out 3 cycles ago, and he definitely will be replaced in the very near future, while at least Tariq or even Flavius will last quite a while as the garrison meta. And I think commander like Zenobia, again, definitely won't last as long as a Flavius will, because she is soon to be replaced. This same philosophy can be used for field commanders as well. I like to look at the newest types of commanders Lilith is releasing. They do really like to look on their old commanders and try and pull snippets off them to make a new and better version of them, basically. For example, I called the new commander released would be some type of like a YSG-esque commander, because there hadn't been anything like YSG since Nebuchadnezzar. So looking at commanders for your troop type and knowing that there probably hasn't been a similar commander for quite a while can be a good indicator of whether or not they will stay inside of the meta. For example, I wouldn't really be getting a Ramses, because I'm going to make an assumption right now, and I'm going to call it now. Not this cycle of archer commanders, but the next cycle, we will probably see some type of commander like Ramses, where they have a lot of instant stats that are kind of luck-based. This is just a guess, but it's always good to have those assumptions before you decide which commanders to invest in, even if we have no knowledge of which commanders that are coming. Now, the best time for basically every player to be investing in commander sculptures, especially if the other things I mentioned line up, especially about which commanders just released and if there are new ones coming, then the best time to do it is right before your KVK Pass 4 opens. This is because you're about to enter battle, you're about to fight it out with your opponents, and this is when you're basically at the final end of drawing out how long you can hold your commander sculptures. You can only hold them for so long. Eventually, you gotta max them. And KVK is certainly the best time to do that because you're about to go to battle, you're about to use those commanders, and you're about to basically get the best trades you can. So I don't like to invest in those commanders, basically unless I'm going into KVK, even if they're the new shiny commander. I do have an exception because I will probably max LIANG or try get him to max for the content, even if I'm not in KVK. But for the most part, you will basically only ever want to invest in commanders if you're about to enter a major battle. Another time you could invest in commanders, which is kind of like a major battle, is Osiris League. There is no Osiris League currently in game, but there should be one coming soon. And Osiris League is basically Ark of Osiris, but the biggest kingdoms fight it out to win like major awards and prizes. So if your kingdom is very, very serious about that, if you're a very, very competitive player in that regard, then it's certainly a good idea to try and invest for Osiris League if that's something you're interested in. Because I know there are kingdoms out there which take Osiris League more serious than KVK, so it really depends on your playstyle in that situation. These videos take a lot of time to make, and I do hope you got some value out of it. I do want to announce though, I'm doing a major live stream this Saturday where I basically play Champions of Olympia like usual, but every time I lose, I spin a wheel of punishments, and I do that punishment. Trust me, it's going to be a very fun live stream. So guys, if you are up at the time I stream it, the time will be available in the description, then please do come check it out. I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.